All right, guys. Today I'm going to talk to you about Uncle Fester and the Kid. And this is a bit of interesting history. There's no real life lessons in all of this. There's no advice I can dispense, but it's just kind of fun facts I'm going to share with you that caught my attention. And what I do is I read a lot. And when I read something I want to remember, the way I cement it in my mind is I repeat the matter to someone else. And that helps just solidify. And the other person is benefited by something interesting likewise. Hopefully, right? Hopefully they'll be as interested in it as you are. That's what I'm going to do with you today. Talk to you about Uncle Fester and the Kid. But before I do that, let me share a little bit of, let me just give you a little bit of beard talk here. Today I'm using in my beard the Wall beard oil. You know, Wall as in like hair trimmers, beard trimmers. They sent me their beard oil, beard softener, and their beard wash, and this really neat set of trimmers. And I had no idea I was getting that. They told me they were going to send me some of their beard supplies, but they sent me a real nice package as a way of thanking me for always using their trimmers in my videos. It was never a deal I had worked out with them. It's just that I just happen to have that tool in my stash, and so anyway, they've seen it and they wanted to thank me for it. But I'll give you my thoughts and my opinions on all of it later on, and just tell you whether it's something I think that you'd be interested in or not. Okay, so having said that, I was reading in a book. I'm reading. I always have about three different books going at a time, and in one of the books I'm reading called Time Capsule 1944 with Dwight Eisenhower on it. Got the date, the year up here. These books were put out by Time magazine back in the early to mid 1950s. They have like a different book for every year, going back from like 1923, 1921, something like that. And what they do is they give you like highlighted articles within this book, highlighted articles from that year condensed in a book. It's really interesting. It's good stuff. Anyway, this is from 1944, so some of the stuff I'm going to be sharing with you comes from that year. But I came across an article last night about beards that you might find interesting. It has to do with sailors and beards. So listen to this. This was published on July 17th, 1944. The Royal Canadian Navy solemnly passed a word of warning to bearded sailors and sailors who had thought of growing beards. The Navy's Newfoundland Command, concluding a post-mortem on the sinking of the frigate Valleyfield, found that a man overboard can be fatally choked by a heavy beard full of oil and salt water. That's not something I've ever heard of before or thought of that could happen. A heavy beard full of oil and salt water. If you're on a sinking ship, I guess that could be a casualty. I do know that when South Pole explorers went to the Antarctic back in, I think it was 1914, when Ernest Shackleton and his ship, the Endurance, was crushed by ice. Well, Ernest Shackleton wasn't crushed, but his ship was, the Endurance. They grew their beards out in advance of the trip, thinking that the beards would keep them warmer. And he said later on, he said that he wouldn't do that again because the ice formed in his beard and it trapped the cold air in, and it made it even more cold and more frigid. And so, interesting stuff, right? Okay, so let's talk about Uncle Fester and the Kid. Surely you know who Uncle Fester is just by saying that. You might be thinking of one or two different actors who played him. You have the movies that were made in the 90s, I believe, with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston and Christopher Lloyd as Uncle Fester, and he played a great Uncle Fester. But what I want you to think of is the 1960s series where John Astin and what's her name that played Morticia? I can't remember her name. Anyway, beautiful woman. And then Jackie Coogan played Uncle Fester. Now, I'm sure that there's probably anybody watching this knows exactly who I'm talking about. He's the iconic Uncle Fester. And but what a lot of people don't know about him is that he was a child star and somewhat of a war hero. Probably not somewhat, probably actually was a war hero. Although the article that I read about this didn't really state that he was a hero, but it did give him some accolades. Um, Jackie Coogan was born in 1914, and he came from a vaudeville performing family. Vaudeville was like the entertainment venue of the day. It wasn't one specific place, but it was a type of entertainment. It was cheap entertainment. You could take your family to, and perform a variety of different acts. And so Jackie Coogan was just a little boy performing on stage when Charlie Chaplin saw him. Now, surely you know who Charlie Chaplin is. He is the king of silent cinema, and his movies are hilarious. And he's the one who actually created United Artists, and it made some of the greatest movies you're ever going to see. Whether you're looking for good movies that are silent, or as I refer to them, talkies, you got to see Charlie Chaplin's movies. Anyway, so Charlie Chaplin saw young Jackie Coogan on stage, and realized he was really good at mimicry and a whole bunch of things, and just he saw a lot of talent. He was looking for a kid who could play in a movie that he wrote, and so he scouted him. He employed him to play in the movie called The Kid, which was released in 1921. The Kid was the second highest grossing film of that year. And I watched it for the first time the other night, and I regret not having watched it sooner. Now there are clips in that movie that just about everyone has seen in something else. The clips are used widely. That's the first time I've seen the whole entire movie. It was a brilliant movie, very well written and directed by Charlie Chaplin himself, and he composed all of the music himself. The guy was just very smart, very able to do what he did, and it's worth watching. In fact, I give it to you as your homework. Look it up, The Kid, 1921 by Charlie Chaplin. Anyway, so in the movie, Jackie Coogan makes his appearance, and he pretty much steals the show. He's about 6 or 7 years old in this. He's cute, he's quick, he's funny, and his acting is superb. I mean, you can see why Chaplin picked him out. And the movie is basically about a woman who's married to an artist. She has a child, but the man that she's married to really isn't interested in her. He's not interested in taking care of her, leaves her by the wayside. She tries to get help from a charity home. She's turned out. She's wandering the street with this baby in her arms. At that point, you don't see Jackie Coogan in the movie, just this baby. And she's wandering the streets with him in her arms, and she sits on a park bench wondering what she's going to do with her life, how she's going to take care of this baby, knowing she has no resources to be able to do it. Okay, so she's feeling despondent, and but she views the landscape and realizes there's this opulent home within walking distance of her. So she sees a nice car sitting in front of the home, and she goes and places the baby in the back seat, thinking that well, they'll come out, they'll see the baby, and they'll take care of it because they're obviously more able to do so. She walks off, goes and sits back on the park bench. In the meantime, 2 car thieves walk by. They look around, they see that nobody's looking, they steal the car. They steal the car with the baby in the back seat, completely unaware of it. They go and they drive off, they're in an alleyway, they stop, and I guess they're plotting their next move. They hear the baby crying, and they realize, we can't go any further with this baby. They discard the baby in the alleyway, they lay it down on the ground. Charlie Chaplin, whose character is the tramp, not only in that movie, but in many movies, is just wandering through the alleyway. He's ambling along, and he sees this baby. And he realizes, I've got to do something. But he doesn't really want the responsibility, so he tries to pawn it off on different people. And this whole thing is so funny. It's really funny and sad at the same time. And it's funny how he blends those two emotions in all of this. He finally realizes that he's just not, through a series of funny different interactions, he realizes he's not going to get rid of the baby. So he takes it home with him, and he names it John. And the baby itself is so cute. I would like to know how they got the baby to do what it did. But anyway, They fast forward about five years. Then enters Jackie Coogan, young Jackie Coogan, who later on we would know as Uncle Fester, right? And the Addams Family. And he's a cute kid, man. And he is just right away, right away. You know he's a hit. He's a star. And so you get to watch this movie and go through the adventures of Charlie Chaplin the kid and everything they have to experience. And in the meantime, this mother who left her baby behind is despondent because she realizes she made a mistake, but she can't take it back because there's no baby to go get anymore. All right, I mean she knows she's made a mistake, but she's made something of herself. Now she's a movie star. Now she's a movie star. And somehow or another, the tramp, the kid, and the real mother uh, cross paths, but they don't know who each other are. Okay. And so I'm not going to give any more of the movie away, but I wanted to let you know that Uncle Fester, Jackie Coogan, was amazing in that movie. He became a millionaire. He became a millionaire before the age of 20, um, from from the success that he was propelled into after that. And he was one of the first celebrities to get his name plastered all over everything and receive royalties. And he was just he made so much money. Anyway, his parents, his father, helped him manage his money, and he put it in his trust and everything. Well, Jackie Coogan, when he was 19 years old, he went on a duck hunting or dove hunting trip with his father and 3 or 4 other men. It could have been 4 or 5 other men. They crossed the border of Mexico. On their way back home, a car ran their car off into an embankment. And everybody in the car died except 19-year-old Jackie. Everybody in the car died. It's a shame. So anyway, his mother remarried. Now he's got a mother and a stepfather. The war comes in 1941 after Pearl Harbor. He enters the war, and as it turns out, in 1944, this very same book I was reading to you from earlier about the Beards, it stated that Jackie Coogan was the first glider plane pilot to land a plane behind Japanese enemy lines. Now, glider planes had been landed in Sicily prior to this, but he was the first one to land within 100 miles of Japanese enemy lines. Now, if you know that may not sound remarkable to you, but you should YouTube glider planes, World War II glider planes. These things were engineless aircrafts made of very little, made of a lot of canvas and wood in a lot of cases, and they would haul jeeps, soldiers, and weapons, and they would be towed behind a plane up into the sky, released, and they would fly in, hopefully undetected and unheard, closer to enemy lines than what a lot of planes could get. It was meant to land boots on the ground and to get boots on the ground and weapons and whatnot. It wasn't just for bombing. That's what it was for, is logistics. So he was the first one to do that. Jackie Coogan was also he was married 4 times. His first wife was Betty Grable. What a hottie. She was a model, a pinup model, and I believe a movie star. But Betty Grable, yeah, she was something else. That didn't work out. But anyway, so what happened was Jackie Coogan needed his money at some point in the course of these years. Somewhere in his early years, he found out. I think it was before he even went to war. He found out that he had no money. Even though he was a millionaire before 20, he had no money because his mother and stepfather spent all of it. He took them to court. He sued them. And he only managed to recoup about $125,000 of it. That's all it was left of millions of dollars. And his mother and stepfather said, well, he never knew what he was doing anyway. He never expected to make anything anyway, and he wasn't even a good kid. That was their excuse for doing this. So anyway, because of him, the Coogan Act got developed, And the Coogan Act, what it stated at that time was that employers of child actors have to set aside 15% of their earnings into a trust that nobody can touch. And I believe it's been modified several times, and I believe child actors have sole right to all of their earnings now. But it was because of Jackie Coogan. And you've heard these stories about, I don't know, you've heard these horror stories of different actors and musicians and artists and whatnot whose parents have taken advantage of the earnings. But there's been a law put in place back in 1939 because of Jackie Coogan. That's who Uncle Fester is. That's who he is. That's what he did. And I highly encourage you to go watch that movie, The Kid, from 1939. Guys, that's all I've got. I really got to get going to work. I don't want to be late. I've got a heavy day ahead of me. Please stay safe while you're out there with everything that's going on. You know, watch your six, keep your head on a swivel, and just try not to get involved in anything. And you know, make sure you're aware of your surroundings. But I do appreciate you watching. If you haven't liked this video, please do so. Subscribe. Do that. Share this with somebody that you think might find this interesting. And stay tuned. Stay tuned for more. I have plenty of it. So anyway, guys, I enjoy it. I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye-bye.